everybody, we're back. This is XL 10-Minute Leaders, showcasing interesting people from around the world, leaders in their own right. They don't necessarily have leaders in their job title, but they're doing interesting things. They are making an impact, commanding our attention in the areas of technology, business, and society. And this is a platform really to share their stories, and very diverse and varied stories they are. So with that in mind, I'm very pleased to welcome our next guest today, all the way from Columbus, Ohio, Fatima Oliver. Welcome to the show.
Hi, good morning, or no, good evening, where you're
Yeah,
at.
we're global. We do all. So it's morning where you are, and it's
Yeah,
evening where we are in Singapore. It's delighted to have you on the show.
thanks
Where are you
for
from
having me.
originally? Are you originally an Ohio girl? Where did you grow up?
No, actually, I was born and raised in Las Vegas, Nevada.
Oh wow,
Yeah,
very
and
different.
yeah, I was born and raised, and then 9 years, close to 10 now, I moved to Charlotte, North Carolina, in the U.S., and just recently relocated to Ohio 2 years ago, actually.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
To colder climes, no?
I know. What's
Compare.
that about? I went from hell heat to straight just I don't know, bipolar weather. It's
There it
crazy.
is. Nothing in the middle. All right then, Fatima. We've got 10 minutes. Are you ready?
Okay.
Let's do this. Okay, 10 minutes starts now. I'll start with an easy one for you. What does it say on your business card?
What does it say? It says soul healing one step at a time.
All right. So what is soul healing?
It's when your mind, your body, your emotions are lined up with your faith and they are all screaming at you saying, pay me some dang attention. And you actually stop and unbusy yourself to do that. And that
Hmm.
process can be scary, exciting. It's just so many different things that can come out of that process. So I
Hmm.
consider it a soul healing journey.
Well, I guess most people are unaligned in that respect, especially the last 18 months has been a bit cruel to us in many ways, hasn't it? I imagine a lot
Yeah.
of people are reaching out to you at this time.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very interesting the conversations that can be had when you're forced to be still.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, do you have a superpower of sorts? What is your superpower if you do have one?
My superpower, I would say making people, well, my kids would say making people feel welcome and making friends. They always say, are you making a friend again? But I never want anybody to feel like a stranger. And I actually feel
Hmm.
like I got that superpower from my mom. But
Hmm.
I would say if it was me, I'd say my superpower is being a mom because it is no joke. And I
Hmm.
have 4 boys, and you just never know what you're going to get at any time.
Oh,
And
how old are they?
yeah, 21, 14, 10, and 7. So
Wow.
yeah, the first two I said I was done, and then I got an encore. I got a finale and an encore. Yay.
Wow. There must be a lot of competition in your household
It
between the boys,
is
though.
lately. It is. They've been on this kick of who's my favorite child, and I messed up. I did tell one. I told one. I said I don't have favorite kids, but if I did, I tell you that
Yeah.
was enough.
Oh, imagine.
So now
Beautiful.
every day it's like I'll bring it. Your favorite child will bring it to you.
You've got to use it to your advantage, though, when it's working like that. So,
You
oh,
do.
wow.
Yeah.
That must be a handful. Well, good for you. I imagine you've kind of like you've learnt to channel your inner Zen as well. You're peaceful. You're
Definitely
very
try or just go crazy and then they're like,
yeah.
ooh, something's wrong with her. Okay, it's just one female in the home. They don't really know how to straight act all the time. You have to go a little flip it. So yeah, that buys me some zen time.
Oh well, for good for you. Well, listen, on paper, why do you think you should have never? Well, on paper, why should you have never been successful, but have
Wow.
been? So, what was it about your resume, your paper skills and qualifications that meant you could
Yeah.
never got where you got now?
Well, I would say if my life would have been on paper, which now it is in a book, see that little plug in I gave. But if my life would have been a part of my resume, that definitely would have been the reason why people would have went. more
Mm,
than likely in a different way, and counted me out because of growing up in a space where we didn't have a lot, a single parent, dad wasn't around, surrounded with drugs, alcohol abuse, sexual abuse, physical abuse. Um, I mean, just really had the hard knocks life, but we felt it was normal.
mm,
On paper, especially as a kid trying to get a job and the sadness that I carried with me, I never could do it. I never could get the position, and I really believe it was my countenance because of everything that I had been through. So definitely, if my life story was on paper on my resume, I think people would shy away from helping me. They would have said I was too broken and wouldn't
mm.
want that person in their business representing them. Yeah,
Wow. Yeah. And that's not easy to own up to either.
yeah,
That, because I imagine in that sort of situation, you could easily blame a lot of people for all of that. But to move
yeah.
forward, you kind of have to, you can't be living in the past, can you?
Yeah, I don't think you definitely can't live in the past, but I do think it's critical to recognize the things that happened in your life, to
Mm,
pay homage to it, the good and the bad, to respect it, sometimes memorialize it so that you
mm,
can process the emotions that are connected to those specific events and truly release it. I do think
mm,
the whole forgive and forget mindset, I think it's too commercialized. And in
mm,
actuality, in order to be able to truly move on, you have to process the emotional part, the emotional connection. And a lot of us don't do that. We think that we can
mm,
move on and strive and get a certain amount of success, but that emotional aspect follows us right in the suitcase along with our lives. So,
mm, mm.
yeah,
Yeah. And runs deep as well.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I imagine it takes a lot of work to
yeah,
go through that and to,
yeah,
like you say, to rationalize it and to process it.
absolutely.
Yeah, and not a lot of people are cut out for that. I imagine that it
I think
takes.
we all are, Graham, but I think it takes a certain amount of courage to face yourself. I don't think
Mm,
it has really to do with facing other people. It's looking at ourselves in the mirror and facing ourselves. And so
mm,
it takes a certain amount of courage, which is crazy. You would think it takes more courage to face other people, but it takes so much more courage to face yourself and your own mistakes and your own bad judgments, and facing the things that have victimized you and being able to honestly say it wasn't your fault. All those
mm,
things take huge amounts of courage and faith, and sometimes we don't do it. I think we're afraid. A lot of us are afraid to do that work.
mm. Oh, I imagine it's not easy. It's not fun either.
Yeah,
I imagine there's a lot of pain that has to be
yeah.
unearthed there as well. So I know you've written a book, right? So tell us about that in the context. I'm going to give you a challenge. You're going to be speaking at TED, and you've got 12 minutes on stage. I think it's 12 minutes at TED, maybe 18 minutes if you're really good. Tell us about what you're going to talk about in the context of your book.
Yeah, so what I would talk about is actually the fear of confrontation, crushing the elephants that are in our lives, those things that keep us tiptoeing around situations or tiptoeing around people, tiptoeing around events, just things that we say, ooh, we shouldn't talk about that because it's taboo, but it's on my heart so heavily. But if I bring it up, people will pass judgment on me. And so we don't express how we truly feel.
Hmm.
We don't speak from our heart and we don't give our pain a voice. And so that is what I would be talking about if I was on that grand stage. I would be talking about giving your pain a voice, not changing the other person's opinion, not trying to get things back to normal, whatever that looks like in your head, but giving your pain a voice and letting the chips fall where they may. There is
Hmm.
something powerful about being able to stand up in your pain and say, this is what's going on in my life. This is what I do not like. This is what I would no longer accept, and working to change your atmosphere. And I would be talking about that in the specifics, giving specific action steps that you could take into your home when you left, not just feeling good about life, but actually have applicable steps to say, I can put this into motion today and start to see a change in my life.
Mm.
My book is about that, is an extension of that, is really the foundation of those steps because I had to walk through that myself and have some very tough conversations as I peeled back the layers, as you were saying, in my soul healing journey. And that is what my book talks about. It talks about the dirt. The book is called The Prescription is in the Dirt. And the dirt is all the tragedy, the trauma, the taboo stuff, the what was it, the black sheep, the black sheep type of conversations, right? The stuff that you should be ashamed about, or the things that your family have collectively said we don't talk about that type of stuff. What happens in our home stays in our home. All that stuff that impacts your life and the direction that you go and the decisions that you make that you don't even realize they're a part of those decisions. That stuff, unpacking those things, and just like dirt, if we don't get the courage to look at ourselves in the mirror and face our mess and face the things that have haunted us, then just like dirt at a grave site, it can bury us alive and we'll be walking around like walking zombies and just trying to function in life but being so emotionally disconnected. Yet if we do allow that dirt to be transformed into a type of soil, then it could grow such beautifulness out of our life and show us the greatness that's within us that we kind of shied away from. So you have a choice on what you do with that dirt. But my book talks about the dirt that was in my personal life, in every facet of my life, relationship with my family, my mom, my husband, my children, all of that. As a friend, talks about the dirt that I had to overcome and the baby steps that I took because I failed a lot and didn't know what the heck I was doing, and then made it over to the other side to be able to talk to you today.
Yeah, it's a wonderful journey
Yeah,
and turns into such a positive outcome as well. And it's still ongoing, isn't it? It's not like
absolutely.
an arrival point. It's a
No,
journey
no.
and an evolution. What are you still learning yourself these days as somebody
Geez.
who's overcome a lot?
So the funny thing about overcoming huge boulder like things is that you start to see the little stuff, right? And so that are just as significant. And if you don't deal with it, it can make some big impact. And
Mm.
so I began to learn how angry I was, and I didn't realize it. I would just cop an attitude and didn't understand why I had an attitude. And I began to realize that I didn't like to feel invisible. I had never realized that before. I didn't realize that that was the core to a lot of my anger. That if I was at work, I would be attitudey and I didn't understand what just happened that made me so upset. And it was because maybe I was in a conversation and somebody came up and the person I was talking to completely stopped talking to me mid sentence and started having this long conversation with somebody else. And I felt kind of abandoned and invisible in that moment and awkward. Or at the house when I talk to my husband and you guys do what you do and say, but then not paying, not even hearing a thing that I'm saying. And I would leave out of the house frustrated, not understanding that it was because as a child, I was one of the kids that was very timid, which is a surprise for a lot of people when I say that. But I was very timid and shy and didn't really voice my opinion. And I had a big family. And when I would try to talk, folks would talk to me, but then turn away and start talking to everybody else who were louder. And I really developed the habit of raising my hand to talk. And my family would make a joke about it, saying, "Oh, look at Fatima raising her hand again." But I even took raising my hand into the boardroom, and we would be in meetings, bunch of people in a meeting, and I would raise my hand to talk, and they would say, "Fatima, seriously, you don't have to raise your hand to talk." But it was a habit that I picked up as a kid. I didn't even
Mm.
realize it. And when I went back and said, "Why are you so dang angry all the time?" It took me back to that moment in my life. Now, did I call everybody up and say, "Remember when you ignored me?" No. But it helped me to be aware of that little hang up so that now when people act in the way that they do, whether they're rude or not, I can check myself and say, "Fatima, it's just them. They're not trying to ignore you, or you're not less than because they treated you that way. Move on. That's just their habit." But I noticed stuff like that, and just I'm slowly just being able to see some past things from my childhood that were so small that I could never see them past the huge
Mm.
things that had happened in my life. Slowly being able to see those things, and finding time to address them.
More power to you, Fatima. Fantastic. Thank you for sharing today. Where do people find out more about you, your writing, and your work?
Yeah, you can definitely find me. My book is on Amazon. You can get it digitally as an ebook, or you can get it paperback. I love a paperback feel of it in my hand and just being able to turn the pages. And if you're like me, you can get a paperback version of my book. The prescription is in the dirt. But I also have a website that you can go to called fatimac.com. And the C is for my middle name. I will not share what that is for you today, Graham, because I have not shared with anyone what that
Oh, it's a
stands for.
mystery.
Well, fatimac.com. And then, of course, I'm on social media. I'm on LinkedIn and Instagram, Facebook, Clubhouse. I just got on there, and Twitter. I'm trying to figure that part out. And Facebook. I'm not sure if I said Facebook. So I'm all over. Fatima C. Oliver. You can totally find
Can't miss her. Unmissable.
me.
Fatima, thank you very much for joining us today. It was a lot of fun and very informative as well. And it's not an easy subject to talk about,
Yeah.
that you bring the positivity to it as well. And obviously, it's making an impact on people. So,
Mm.
keep doing your work and keep, making a difference. Thank you so much today.
Yes. Thank you. I appreciate you having me.